Studios game director.
I'm Eric Holmes, creative director at Warner Brothers Games.
Eric Holmes, Oh, there you are. Warner Brothers Games, Montreal, creative director, Eric Holmes.
That's right. How's it going, guys?
Good.
I'm good.
I'll go first. Okay, so you guys have taken over for Batman Arkham. What do you guys decided to do different, and what's similar to what's been done with Batman Arkham before?
What did you do differently?
Well, it's such a big question. How about I'll answer one part of it, which is, I guess, mainly about setting. So we're a prequel game set before Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. And I think the one thing which that really lets us do, which is unique to this setting, is we have a Batman who's not complete. So at the start of our game, he doesn't really know who he is. He hasn't really pushed himself to his limits and discovered how far he can push his rules. How far he'll have to push himself to take on characters that are way more extreme than the ones he's fought before. Before our game, he's principally fought the mob. He's fought the Falcones, he's fought the Malones, he's dealt with the corrupt cops in Gotham. But the guys that come to face him in our story take it to a whole other level. The assassins that Black Mask has brought to town are characters who, at least in many cases, are his peers, and in some cases are arguably his superiors. So he's pretty used to starting our story to being easily the most talented guy, the most skilled guy in the room, right? And when he goes up against characters like Deathstroke, it's something which really forces him to think about, wow, he can't just use brute force anymore, but he has to be much more resourceful. And it's something which is initially kind of crushing for his ego and difficult for him to deal with, because he doesn't really have the techniques at first to take on guys like that. But he has, Batman, he's a very resourceful guy. He never gives up, and so that gives us an interesting arc for him to go through, where he has to kind of emotionally take that on and then kind of evolve his tactics and his techniques. And I think that growth of Batman that we see in our story is something which is really different, I guess, from the other games, because the other games he's very complete. Batman is Batman through these games, and so we're kind of exploring what Batman is in these scenarios rather than how did Batman become the guy we know he eventually will become.
Well, since you guys say you're talking about a younger Batman, that means you've had more creativity to open him up from the Batman that we know. How did you guys go around going, well, we can do this and that wasn't in the two, because this is kind of a fresher Batman. How did that guy impact your decision on how to take the game and create it?
So what was our kind of decision-making process?
Yeah, since it's a younger Batman,
Well, I guess one of the things we tried to do for that was we tried to give him an opportunity to make mistakes, right? Batman is traditionally, he's super skilled to the point where he knows what everyone's going to do before they do it. And if someone thinks they've got him painted into the corner, they find that he's the guy that put them in that corner, and they didn't know what was happening. Whereas in our game, Batman will make mistakes. What one's going to use. So there's one example which we've shown before, which is where he's interrogating someone about where the Penguin is, and during the interrogation he chokes the guy out. So the guy doesn't get to answer. And then I think you saw in the 3 demo, you'll see on the floor, he wakes the guy up, dangling him off the side of the clock tower, and then interrogates him again and gets what he needs to know. Not long after that, he gets to the Penguin, he starts choking him too, but he doesn't choke him out, he's figured out how to do it now. So it's not like he brings out his explosive gel that blows up in his hand or something like that, and he's like, oh, he's making dumb mistakes. He's making mistakes which are awesome and are empowering, but he's learning how to do his craft, right? And I think those moments will be fun and satisfying for people to realise.
Did you, when doing this game, because it's a prequel, you've got 2 installments already done, did you guys feel, as far as storyline or character development, kind of stuck because you had a future that you had to plan for?
Oh, no, not at all. I think, there's a tradition in comic books of early career stories, right? You go back to the 1980s, you got Year One, and then you got things like Green Lantern, Emerald Dawn, and you've got all these early career defining stories. But I think ultimately we know where things will get to, but we don't know necessarily how they got there. We don't know how Gordon went from being a guy who hunts the Batman to a guy who's Batman's ally. We don't know how Gordon becomes the commissioner, for argument's sake. We don't know that. We don't know how. We don't know what Alfred first thought about Batman when Bruce put this gear on and started going out and do this thing. And we know where they normally are. We know Alfred's normally in this very supportive role, and they're, it's kind of like a father and son relationship, and they connect deeply over what they're doing. He completely buys into it. But the start of our story, an example for that would be Alfred doesn't really understand it. He doesn't really buy into it. He knows Bruce is really talented and skilled. He's kind of okay with it, but there's moments in our story where Alfred thinks that Bruce should just stay home and just let this whole thing blow over with black masked assassins that come to town. Because why does he have to go out there and fight them? Let the police deal with it and just stay home, and then they can't win. But Bruce is absolutely determined that if he doesn't go out there, that this thing will escalate and people will die. So he has to go out there and try and stop it. And that puts contention between the two of them, which is not something you're really used to seeing. Normally you see these guys and they're perfectly in sync, but we get to see them start to sync up through the story. And so seeing these pieces snap together, I think, can be really satisfying. It's kind of like a puzzle. The pieces being put there, but they're being put down by you and your actions. And I think that's really valuable for the early career setting.
Arkham Asylum pulled a little bit of its story and ideas from Serious House on Serious Earth. Is there any previous stories that in DC that you visited when you were doing this, and
there's some, but I can't really name too many of them because they may tell you what's in the game. I think how about ones for setting? So these are not story references, not like it's the story from this, but things like the Long Halloween, the career setting. Generally, the whole setting around Legends of the Dark Knight. There's, The Man Who Laughs is definitely a very powerful and modern imagining of the first meeting between Batman and Joker. We're not retelling that, we have our own story, but there's definitely inspirations that come from that. One example, it was a line I think we literally have there, which we loved in that book. When Batman says, he's fought. When he started this, he thought he would fight pimps, he thought he would fight muggers, he thought he would fight thieves, but he couldn't imagine something like the Joker. The idea of what the Joker represents is something that it wasn't on the radar when he started fighting these criminals. And it's a challenge for him to even understand, why does this guy do that?
Yeah.
What's he trying to do? And it's insanity, right? He's encountering insanity.
That whole conversation that he has in Dark Knight with Michael Caine as Alfred. He says, you started this, and this is what you get because of it.
Right.
Were there any characters, as far from a creative standpoint, was DC pushing you to use certain characters, or did you have free reign over the rogues gallery?
I think the premise itself really helped us control which cast we brought in, because the main roster of the bad guys are characters that are assassins. So it brought a really focused approach to choosing the bad guys. I think our challenge within that was to try and make sure that there wasn't a lot of overlap between these characters. They all represented something different. And we have had a lot of fun with these other characters we want to call the Most Wanted, which is this other category. These are other guys who aren't assassins. They're characters who are just trying their hand tonight because there's chaos in the streets. So characters like Anarchy are characters that are out there. I think, can I mention the character in that OXM article because it's out now? I can't mention that? Okay. If you guys were to look at official Xbox magazine and the article that's in there's a character who's also in the Most Wanted. I can't name that character.
Something about the time of year. I heard that it's going to be around Christmas Eve, Christmas time. How's that going to play a role in just the setting with
Right, well, that's a really fun thing. I think we wanted our game immediately. If you take a screenshot of it, a single screenshot of it, it's Arkham Origins, and you don't think, is this Asylum or is this City? We wanted to make sure that the Origins had its own distinctive look and appeal. But we also, as part of the franchise, it can't be a reinvented visual. So we were trying to find something that would help us change the world and also change the costumes and change the vibe. And so we looked at a bunch of options, but the one we landed on was Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve gives us lots of snow, but also, more importantly, gives us this warm feeling because we've got Christmas decorations, and we have Christmas trees, and we have carols being sung, and we have parties being had. So one example that you'd see that is the Royal Hotel, which you'd see at the demo that we showed at E3 and what we've got here at Comic-Con. You have this hotel which was decked out for a big Christmas party, but the Christmas party's not happening because these guys have taken over the whole place. So you have this irony of this warm Christmas image, like, oh, Christmas, family, presents, turkey, and then you've got Gotham, which is Gotham in crisis too. So you've got this black on white, happiest night of the year and the worst place in the world connected to each other. And it adds, you're laughing because it's kind of funny, right? But it doesn't break the theme. It doesn't make it goofy.
Right.
It's not like we have. It's not like we have a furry convention or something like that. And it's like, why would the furry convention? That's just weird. So Christmas is relatable, but it also changes the whole world. And I think adds a level of. There's a lot of classic Batman stories that have taken place at Christmas. It seems very appropriate for IP, but it does make things feel refreshed.
We have to wrap up.
When you're developing these things, I'm just curious. Christopher Nolan obviously still, even though he's finished his trilogy, has an enormous sway over the Batman franchise. Does that come into the games at all? I mean,
I think Chris Nolan's movies have changed everyone's ideas of what Batman is, right? Like, it's absolutely. I don't think Batman ever did any gliding before Batman Begins, right? Like, he would use a glider, but he didn't glide with his cape. And that movie just changed that, and then everyone suddenly started thinking differently. Oh, Batman just glides with his cape. Right? It's a good example of how it influenced, I think, the whole property and the collective consciousness. But the influence is the main source, the main inspiration for the Arkham franchise is the comic books, and really starting with them. And I think there's a level of realism, and the Nolan movies are very, very real. They look the real world, and there's one fantastic element. The fantastic element is Batman, and to some degree, it's the new characters. The characters of the Joker is a little weirder, and Bane is a little weirder. But otherwise, the characters are super grounded, and everyone in it is very believable. I think the Arkham games, because of their comic book references, are a little bit less real, and more of a. I guess it's got more of a permission slip to do creative things for gameplay that work for the game experience more. But I think everyone loves Chris Nolan. They're fantastic pieces of cinema, and I think they fundamentally changed the way people think about the character. The thing I really liked about it, actually, at a personal level, was before the Nolan movies came out, I loved Batman. Right? I've loved Batman since I was a teenager, and I picked up Dark Knight Returns, but. It wasn't cool to say you like Batman until the Chris Nolan movies came out. It was kind of like, oh, do you have the duvet? Oh, what else do you like? Do you have the pajamas for Batman?
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like that. And then Chris Nolan's movies came out, and suddenly it was cool to like Batman and tell your friends, right? Like it was acceptable, and it was an adult medium. So I think that's something that Nolan's movies have really done for me.
But I also meant when I said his sway, like they consult him basically. Like if you're doing a new animated show, Christopher Nolan is consulting. Okay. I mean, does he get consulted at all on the game level?
I've never spoken to him.
Okay, that's what.
So no, I've watched his movies.
Did you guys have any last questions?
At GonzoGeeks.com, we like to ask everybody what you geek out personally about. What do you geek out about?
What do I geek out about, like, related to the game?
Anything in the world.
Well, I guess probably the biggest sin I have for that is Transformers. I absolutely love Transformers. And a few years ago, I actually got the chance to go and do it's funny, another thing called Origins. It was a Transformers series it's a 4-issue series with IDW Publishing where I'd realized that we'd never gone back. No one had ever explained why this 4 million year war between these robots. No one ever said what started it. Like, why are they fighting? What are they hoping to do? They're just fighting because there's a red team and a blue team. And so they've got these cool, really enduring characters that everyone loves. But I geeked out about that, so I really loved I explored that, and I wrote this proposal, and it bounced around when the rights were going through Dreamwave, and eventually ended up with IDW. So that's my #1 collecting thing, and Batman's a close #2 there.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get one shot?